The old goddess cultures were peaceful. They did not find weapons buried with them.
Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And welcome everybody to the Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Oh my God, you absolutely have to tune into this. This is a pioneer. This is someone that some people, I talked to someone earlier today. She says, that's the person that came out with all the chakra stuff to start with. She's a potent being, and she's quite a goddess. Where we talk about goddess energy, or however, I don't know. I don't want to misspeak, but we're talking about the book Goddess, and we'll be talking about that. And it's interesting because I've got a podcast called Just Two Conscious Guys talking about the patriarchy, but what created it. Let's get into that. And so it's going to be a juicy show. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of love, a lot of good energy, a lot of who knows, mixing things, the energy up a little bit, maybe even. Who knows what's going to happen? That's what's so fun and exciting about these shows. It's going to be a lot of love, though. I know that. So, Anita, I'm so honored you're on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Anodea, yes.
Anodea, okay. Thank you. You got me on that one. All right, thank you. I've had people, some of my guests call me David, so I guess it turns around sometimes, right? Okay. All right, thank you. Anodea Judith is a globally recognized teacher and the author of several best-selling books on chakras, psychology, yoga, social change, and women's leadership, which has been translated into 28 languages. She is the founder and director of the teaching organization Sacred Centers, a member of the Evolutionary Leadership Council, which I need to check that out again. It's been a while since I've looked into that one, and has been called a prophet for our time. And AnodeaJudith.com is where you can learn more about her, and we'll talk more and more about where you can reach out to her later. But let's go ahead and talk about this book. So there's got to be, how I see it is there's what you're up to, what I talked about in the bio. There's got to be something that's happened, of course, through all the lifetimes, but in this lifetime, even, of course, that was big for you, that created the desire for you to go in this direction, to do all this work you're doing, especially with the goddess, and we've got the new thing coming up too. She Rises is in the back, the new thing. So tell us about what's motivated you to be a part of creating this book and to be a part of this direction you're going with your work right now.
Well, a very long time ago, about 50 years, I took a journey. I left civilization. I sold everything I had. I went and lived alone on a mountaintop in the wilderness, just off the grid, completely alone, lived in a tent for a few months. And it was there really in the world of nature, once I got away from civilization and got that vibration out of my mind, that the goddess came to me. And then lo and behold, at the bottom of the mountain, I discovered a whole community of people that was a neo-pagan church that worshiped the goddess. So that was where I found my way in, and that was in the mid-70s. And in 1985, I was ordained as a priestess, in which I swore my life to serve her. And then I went on and did many things. I wrote my chakra books. I've been teaching all over the world. And it came full circle when I ran into my publisher, Ariel Patricia, on a Zoom breakout session. And she knew of me and my work. And she said, I want you to write a book on the goddess for my Common Sentience series. And just about 3 weeks before that, I was cleaning my office and I found a notebook with several chapters that I'd written on a book about the goddess 40 years ago, around the time I was ordained. And then I got onto other things and never did anything. And I thought, I wonder if you're ever going to do anything with this. So it was just a couple weeks later that I wound up in this Zoom breakout session, and it came to me. I wasn't even looking for it. So I said, of course I had to say yes.
Oh yeah, wow. I love when that happens, right? This stuff that you had just there, and you're like, I have no idea, but probably somewhere in your awareness, you're like, I think it's going to be something that's important at some point to have material to have is what it sounds like, and how amazing that is that that came into fruition at this time. So with this work that you have, there is a lot of talk about goddess energy and everything. For my audience, this isn't like a new idea, right? Like you go on all different shows, I imagine, anyway. But you know, when we say goddess, what are we really talking about? Who
Well,
is goddess? Like, like, let's get into that a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, well, the goddess is not just Jehovah in a skirt.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not putting lipstick on Zeus. She is a wholly different entity. She is the life force itself. She is the spring blossoms coming out right now in the northern hemisphere. She is the winter's rest. She's the snow, the beauty. She's life. She's really the life force. She's not this abstract detached place that we go. She's in me, she's in you, she's in all your listeners, she's in
Mhm.
the cats and the dogs and the trees. So she is really life itself, the
Mhm. Mhm.
animated material world.
Mhm. 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 Now, I'm curious, how does that differ from so it's life itself is how I'm hearing it.
Yeah, it's the life force that sings in all of creation. She's the beauty of the green earth. She's the white moon of the stars.
Mhm.
The white moon and the stars. She's the mountains and the seas and all the diversity of nature. I mean, she's nature
Mhm.
itself,
Mhm.
And so when we deny the goddess, we're denying nature, and look what's happening in our world.
So, one of the things, I am reviewing some of the material that was sent to me, and you talk about the goddess being the feminine face of the divine. So, is the goddess because it's a little bewildering if I go to my mind on this, right? So, my mind says, yeah, but I was taught that, God is got a masculine connotation from Christianity. So like, there's a God. So how could it be a goddess and be feminine? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever in the programming, right?
Well, sure.
So tell us how to look at that, because some people would say, "Come on now, source God or whatever." It's not. It's not a. I'm not saying you said this, but I'm just going to the reactivity. So, people would say like it's not a woman. It's not a man either. It's neither one. So what are we talking about here? So could you explain that more?
Yeah, well, when I was a little girl, I said to my mom, Mommy, why is God always referred to as a he? What does that mean for me as a little girl? And she said, oh, well, that refers to everybody, honey. Just ignore it. And yes, God, he gave his only son to save mankind. And
Mhm.
there's nothing feminine at all. And in the
Mhm.
mythology, it's like our culture is living in a broken home, a father with no mother, and so much no mother that we never even knew we had one. We don't even know she's missing. We're not allowed to ever talk about her. And this is a single father who doesn't even date. I mean, there's no feminine whatsoever in the picture. And
Mhm.
the thing is, that means we're missing half of creation in
Mhm.
our theology and in the things that run the world and bring value. The
Mhm.
values that we hold in the world, we're missing half. We're only playing with half a deck. And so
Mhm.
without a goddess, I say a religion without a goddess is halfway to atheism.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting, the word atheist was first used in the Roman Empire for the early Christians, because theism
Mhm.
means the divine is in everything. It's not outside, above, beyond, it's in everything. And
Mhm.
so the theists were the goddess worshippers, and it was gods and goddesses. It wasn't all feminine. But it was
Right.
a pantheon, a multiplicity of gods and goddesses. And then when the Christians came along and said, oh no, there's only one God, they were called atheists, which was against the theism that
Mhm.
saw divine in everything.
Mhm.
And so that's where the word first came from. But a religion without a goddess is halfway to atheism.
Mhm. Hmm. Interesting. So, what's your take on what created all that. Like men are the masculine. It's all about the masculine, and it's about, I don't know, some people believe that this age has been about men and now it's time for women, and that perspective. And I kind of agree with it. I kind of don't, right? Because I'm just that way. But I tend to look at things from many perspectives. So what do you believe generated all that? Because that's always a central question of mine, and people have different answers. I'm curious what yours is.
Well, it's very important to know the history. You know that once upon a time, what everyone worshipped was a mother goddess, and all over Europe and Asia, there were 30,000 figurines found that were pregnant women, ample bodied, big breasted, big buttocks, and they were little feet that stuck in the ground. They were worshipped everywhere. So there was widespread worship of a mother goddess. But then when you have a mother goddess, you have lots of birth and you have lots of babies, and the babies grow up, and there's girl babies and there's boy babies, and there's brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers, and then pantheons of gods and goddesses. But that was still in the polytheistic, meaning, the divine is in everything. And that was into the classical period of ancient Greece and coming into the Roman Empire. But patriarchy was already starting to take over. And as population expanded and we started bumping into each other and competing for resources, land, water, food, things like that, we started to go more toward a military society. And you can imagine that, some tribe or village only had to get wiped out once for all the men to say, next time we're going to be ready. We're going to train our sons. We're going to train our uncles. We're going to make more weapons. We're going to practice. And so the resources of the community all went more into the military, and then that dominated, and that gave more power to the men. It's not like the men were evil in any way. Really, it was the masculine urge to protect. If there's an invading tribe, the man's going to say to his wife who's pregnant and has a child at the breast, you go hide over there, and I'm going to pick up a spear and defend us. So it's really something noble in the masculine that got started. But then as wars increased and the men were separated from the women for months or years at a time, riding on horseback and fighting with spears and all that, they became hardened, and they became disconnected from family and nurturance and growing the grain and all the things of the homestead. And so as they came back, then they dominated, and that anger from the war came out in their viciousness against the women. And so the goddess cultures were just systematically repressed, knocked down, replaced by masculine gods. And then when Christianity came in, we were already moving toward patriarchy. And so it landed in something that was fundamentally patriarchal. And so I don't think Jesus was necessarily, but I think the interpretation of him and the way it was used, especially by the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire had, thousands of people coming through the gates every day from different languages and different customs, different gods and goddesses that they worshiped. And the Romans had to make everyone get along. By 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea, they decided that Christianity and one God would be the political answer to all the diversity, and everything else was suppressed. The old temples were destroyed, statues were beheaded, the priestesses were murdered. It became even life-threatening to utter the name of the goddess. And then this went on through in Middle Ages and the witch burnings until it was just so suppressed. Everything having to do with the goddess was made evil and punishable and, fear, until we just sort of accepted this is the way it is. And it went into the darkness of forgetfulness. And it wasn't even part of the culture until, around the 60s, when archaeologists started digging into the soil and found these goddess figurines and went, well, there was worship of a goddess once. There was a feminine. And it's been lost. And so that was 50 years ago, a resurgence. And now she's coming back. She's rising out of the underworld and returning. And just in time.
Yeah. I mean, and how do you see that happening right now? Like, how is it emerging from your view?
Well, I think that there's been different waves of feminism. You know, the 60s was women's liberation. You know, I was growing up during that time, and it was like, yes, we're going to take the curlers out of our hair, we're going to burn our bras, and we're going to say, we want to be let into the workplace. We want to have jobs. We want to make a living. We want to support ourselves. We want to have freedom. And that was very good and still has a ways to go. But what happened is women were entering the man's world, and we had to become like men to compete in that world. And some women are able to do that and they're fine with it. Some women get really burned out trying to do that. But what I think the next wave is what are the values of the feminine that are missing from the public conversation? And when I say public conversation, I mean the political conversation, the economic conversation, the environmental conversation, the education, you know, all the systems that we have that are primarily masculine, and they work to a certain extent. I mean, it's not that the masculine is bad in any way at all, that I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's missing its dance partner, and we're not playing with a full deck. And so the values of love and compassion and healing and collaboration and peace, the old goddess cultures were peaceful. They did not find weapons buried with them.
Right.
Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free meditate, make money meditation today.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I know that history. I'm beginning informed by you by certain things. And then there's these things that I do know about. And yeah, they dig up those civilizations of the past. They find no weapons of war. They find nothing like that whatsoever. And that's because I believe they were so close to the connection with, if you want to call it the goddess, but yeah, the goddess energy, the nature itself. And, you know, like I always remember these stories where they say, I don't know where these stories come from, but like they say when, you know, people came across and the Native American Indians here, and they would see like these white men coming in or whatever. And they're like, they look like they're like looking for something. And they're like, what are they looking for? What is going on with them? It's like they're possessed is almost what they would say. Like, you know, what's going on? This is very strange, you know, because they were just on average, you know, most of them are more living just closer to nature, and they were very connected to that and had their own, you know, spiritual connection in that way. But my point is just that, yeah, we, the thing with this energy with these masculine systems for protection, for, like you said, started off that way, it makes perfect sense. And that okay, we need to get rid of the goddess or the feminine, because not just women but just all of that. Because for guys, what do you think like everybody on my podcast says when I say, you know, what was it like growing up as a guy and what were the rules and everything? You can't be vulnerable, you can't cry, you can't, you know, you can't be feminine. You cannot, you know, like that's that idea. Otherwise you would, you know, especially in the, you know, it's getting better, I think, these days overall, but it's still there. It's still very prevalent. You'd be, you know, eviscerated by, you know, the other guys, right? Like you'd be picked on and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. The feminine got so repressed that men weren't allowed to have any either.
Yeah.
And if you
exactly.
think about the men that were going off to war, you know, if a man was afraid, oh, I could get killed, that could be a danger to the mission. If he missed his wife and he was there longing for his wife and his kids, that could be a danger to the mission. So it became it became a liability for men to have any emotion, right? They had to be hard and cold and go into battle. Terrible thing to do to them. And then it hardened them. And so when they came back, they couldn't relate. And, you know, women were running everything because they were left to it. You know, and it's not that all men went off to war, but certainly war kept escalating and escalating. And now, you know, when men go off to the military, they go away from their families, they get indoctrinated into a pretty much wholly masculine enterprise for 3-4 years, however long they're in. So yeah, and they forgot the feminine ways. You know, we found that if you do research into women as peace builders, that when women are part of a peace accord or the peace negotiations, the peace is accepted by the people more readily. It lasts longer. And yet women are mostly kept out of the peace process. There's only one woman that's been allowed to sign an international peace treaty in our history. And that was a woman from the Philippines, Miriam Colonel Ferrer, I think her name was. So we have to start letting women into places. You know, they find that when women are on the boards of, you know, Fortune 500 companies, the companies make more money, they have a slower employee turnover, they have better stock performance, and yet women are only 7% of the boards of all Fortune 500 companies, 7%. So women have been kept out of all the places of power, and those power structures are falling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ability of men to build is a noble thing. You know, sometimes I say that biologically men have a thing and women have a place, right? Not to put too fine a point on it, but men have given us a world full of marvelous things. We have airplanes and computers and stereos and cars and hospitals and schools, and, you know, largely built by men. You know, and where would we be without those things? We wouldn't be talking to each other right now.
Right.
But in the process of giving us all these marvelous things, they've trashed the place because that wasn't considered important. And now we have enough things. It's time to clean up the place.
Right.
Now, this doesn't mean we go to a matriarchy. By no means. It means we go to a partnership society where men and women are working in partnership as equals.
Yeah. And it's a partnership within ourselves, right? Because there's crazy toxic masculinity within women, right? I mean, things will be this way. We could, you know, like, I mean, we've all met people that are really, you know, like that. And, you know, people that have touches of it and whatever and everything in between. And then you meet people who are, you know, I don't know, like, they're just so like, well, I'm just sitting with the planet and the earth and the spiritual energy, and that's all I need to do. And like, you know, I'm not saying that's feminine. I don't know, but I'm like just saying like there's that dynamic balance is always the kind of term I use for this. There needs to be a dynamic balance of the energies, right? And then everything kind of rests in that, you know, the nature of who the goddess or whatever. Everything rests in that. If we want to again call it that, I guess, you know, I don't know what to make of that word. I said goddess as being female, but like I just say like, but that essence of life, yeah, everything rests there, and it's a dynamic balance of like I always say with the masculine, like I've got to, you know, let's go, let's do this, do this. And then the feminine is like, okay. And then the feminine is like, you know what? You do better to go that way though. Like, like that's kind of how I see it. Like, I don't know. Like, that's just my weird way of looking at it. But
well, that's, you know, taking in the feminine viewpoint and realizing that it's just as important. It's not the answer, but it's just as important as the masculine viewpoint. And we work with them together.
Yes. Yeah, totally. So, and when we have those combined viewpoints within, it's yeah, I mean, that's heaven on earth, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
I think we're here for is to create heaven on earth. That's, I think, humanity's purpose right now, to learn how to, you know, we've been given a beautiful planet to do it with. How can we create a civilization that is, you know, literally heavenly for everyone? It's possible, you know?
Yeah. Well, because if we're living, because I talk about that, like with, you know, I have a program I do with Jesus and everything, and that's what I always talk about. We're living in the heaven on earth frequency, you know, that we're getting embodied in that. And man, the level of peace, this level of connection that you have, and how you approach things, you would think, okay, like one of the concerns people have with like, well, we're gonna go more goddess. It's like a lot of concerns, but like, oh, you get more passive and you'll just accept things, and it'll make everything worse. And we got to fight, and we got to stand up for ourselves. We got to be in our power, you know, this power. And it's like, now it's like we're realizing there's far more power in the connected energy, you know, right? In this goddess energy that we can tap into, men and women, you know?
And the goddess is not passive, not at all.
Yeah. I agree.
It's just gentler. But if you look at, you know, the fury of a volcano, if you look at even spring blossoming, you know, it's singing with creativity. It's not passive. It's not just laying there saying, well, maybe I'll wake up someday. You know, there's an active, dynamic force in the goddess that is really the creation of everything. And you say, yeah, resting in the goddess, we rest in the earth. You know, we come to the earth, we grow from it. But, you know, we have 8 billion people living on this earth. We're not living in the sky.
Right.
You know? And so worshiping the earth mother is sort of putting things in its place. I say it's coming home to the goddess. And I say home stands for Holy Order of Mother Earth. That in biology, there is a scripture, you know, in the science of the cells and the molecules and the, you know, plants and the animals, that there's a holy scripture written by nature that's much older than we are. And that's the Holy Order of Mother Earth. She's been doing this a long time, long before humans were on the scene. You know, we could learn a lot from that if we honor it. And it doesn't mean we all go back to live in the wilderness like I did 50 years ago. I don't think that's realistic any more than you're going to go back to your mother and breastfeed, you know. But we do need to incorporate that. And then we have a balance between heaven on earth, and it's bringing heaven down to earth. I have a friend who says, you know, we don't need to raise hell to change the world. We just need to lower heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The ascension process, right? It's talking about ascending. Unfortunately, some people just think that means leave your body. Thank God. That's what I've been looking for all along. Like, that's the panacea. There's tons of people are just waiting for the day that it's all going to end. We're going to all ascend all at once. And guys, that's, you know, even if that happens, like that is not how you're meant to live. Just being waiting for that day, right? I mean, we're meant to be active. We're meant to be like listening and following through on what we're hearing from our goddess, you know, and that's that is where things work best. I mean, and so if it's true that women are more connected to that on average, you know, just on average, you know, then yeah, I mean, that's all part of what's going to make them exceptional CEOs, leaders. They don't have their ego all attached. Like I got to control everything. The best ones don't anyway. But like, yeah, but they're going to be like in that place of more connection and trust and following that. And I know that you talk, just to kind of segue, I know you talk about like for the women listening in, people are all different times of their life, right? In terms of the kind of goddess energy that they're being called to maybe sink into or embody or whatever. And so I know you talk about that in the book. So I wanted to touch on that. You talk about these different life stages, the maiden, the mother, the queen, the crone. Could you tell us more about that? Because I think it could be helpful for our listeners to learn about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say that the goddess is not just for women. You know, these faith, we have the young lad and we have the father and we have the elder. So we have it for men too. But in particular, the goddess does, you know, like you say, the divine absolute, you know, comes into dark and light and comes into masculine and feminine, and then continues to break down into different parts as we come into manifestation. So then after it breaks into masculine and feminine, the feminine part comes into what was always the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone, which are the 3 stages of a woman's life. She's a maiden until she gets pregnant, and then she's a mother until her children have grown up and left home and gone on their own, and then she's a crone for the rest of her life. And that's the way it was in the old days. And the reason I added a queen is because in this day and age, you know, it used to be that women, you know, started getting pregnant when they were teenagers and they had 10 kids and they were raising kids until they were 60, and then they were pretty washed up. But nowadays, women may have fewer children. They might not have children at all. They may have them young, and then by the time they're 40, they're done and they have lots of good years in them. And they go into a profession. And they may go into a profession in their 20s or their 40s or their 60s, but they're serving the world in some way. And that's the queen phase. So more than just the stages of a woman's life, though, these aspects represent, you know, the maiden is what's new. She's the morning, she's the springtime. If you're beginning an enterprise, you want to start with a maiden and have her help you. She's the promise of you know, what's brand new. She's the dawn. The mother is the summer and the fall. She's the midday. She's the fertility, the fruit ripening on the vine. She's the harvest. And so if you're wanting to bring what you're doing into fullness, you want to go with the mother. And then the crone is what is moving in towards death. And the crone is saying, oh, now we back off a little and we go into more meditation and we go into our wisdom and we do less. The crone doesn't have the beauty of the maiden. She doesn't have the fertility of the mother, but she has the wisdom of the elder. Mm-hmm. And then the queen is the one who serves humanity. You know, Oprah is a beautiful everyday, I mean, not every day, but, you know, contemporary queen. But in the old literature, you know, they referred to Inanna as the queen of heaven and earth. It's Isis, queen of the gods. You know, so they use the word queen quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Recently, I just talked to somebody. It was just a network meeting, but she's a Ascension teacher and all this, and she's like, because I've connect with Jesus is a connection for me. I channel his energy and all this stuff, and so she's like, well, you realize like he was partly taught and informed by the goddess Isis, right? And like, so I was like, yeah, I guess I have heard that before, but it's been a while. So, but yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. Some of the mythology and the actual, things that where this all has come from, like this goddess energy and the Isis and all that. Tell us more about like how that's shaped history and society, women, and how maybe we need to, I'm guessing, kind of reconnect with more of that energy.
Well, there's I have a quote in my book, Goddess, that the universe is made of stories, not atoms. So the stories we tell ourselves are the glue of a culture, and they give us our values, our morals, they give us our reason to be, our purpose. And so long ago, mythology held the culture together, and they were the stories of the gods and the goddesses and how they interacted, and they were metaphors. They weren't true in the literal sense, in that even Jesus walking on water is a metaphor. It's not necessarily true in the literal sense, but it's true on a deeper level, that he could transcend and he could create miracles. So these myths were the glue of a culture. And then science came along and said, oh, well, those myths are all a lie. And today the word myth, you'd say, oh, well, that's just a myth, right? It means it's a lie. But the myths were true on a deeper level. And so all of the gods and goddesses, they have stories about them. And those stories are allegories for how to live, how to understand the way things work. And they represented, the aspects of birth and death and life and love and fertility and creation and the sun and the moon and the ocean and how everything got along. And when they were destroyed, we lost the fabric. So science tells us what, it can tell us how, it doesn't tell us why. And we need myths to tell us why. So science took us a step forward on our right leg, but unless we pick up myth, we can't take the next step with our left leg. And same way with patriarchy, it was a step on the right leg, but the goddess is the left leg. And if we want to walk forward into the future, we need to stand on two legs. The butterfly needs to fly with two wings. And unless we're balanced, we're not going to make it. We're going to spin out of control.
Right. Makes perfect sense. Makes total sense. So you have practices you talk about, and you talk about meditation in the book. What are some of the things people can do that, understand what you're talking about, but feel like, well, okay, but, what are some of the ways to embody that goddess energy and so I'm not walking, with my right leg and dragging the left.
Right. Well, since the goddess is embodiment itself, then, it is about joy. It's about celebration. It's about music and dance and color and pageantry and poetry and drama. And I don't mean, personal relationship drama. I mean, the rituals were like plays, in which the humans embodied the gods and had their experience. The Eleusinian mysteries, which was the rites of Demeter, who was the grain goddess, they were practiced for 2,000 years. Every Greek citizen whether they were slave or merchant or king, went and experienced the Eleusinian mysteries. And in that, they fasted for 9 days, and they walked from Athens to Eleusis, that was 9 miles, with their pigs and their chickens and their families. And they went into the temple, and they all came out without ever revealing the secret of how. We think hallucinogens were involved, though. But they said, I have seen the end of life, and its goddess-sent beginning. I know I will never fade away. I am eternal. So they saw the eternity of life, and that gave them faith. And this was something all of them did. These were the rights of Mother Earth, right? And then Christianity came along and put a stop to all that and punished it with death. So we lost the Eleusinian mysteries. But there were many rites like that united people. So, worship of the goddess, and it's not even worship. Worship is something outside me, like, oh, I'm going to bow down to this idol and I'm going to worship it. It's not really what we do. We celebrate. And sometimes I say we put the R back in celibate. We celebrate. And, goddess rituals are drumming and dancing and singing and colorful costumes and food and just celebration. And that's what we lost with the patriarchal religions. Oh, you have to sit still on your mat and be totally quiet for hours on end and wear black all the time, and that we lost all that life force. So get back into your body, let yourself celebrate, let yourself enjoy this phenomenal world, because it's really phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. Adorn yourself, create beauty. I'm very dedicated to beauty in my life. I have a big garden outside. I said to my husband to say, well, as I've gotten older, now I'm in my 70s, I've lost some of my younger beauty, but I create beauty in my life. So that's a way to honor the goddess. Mm-hmm. And in the book, I have a ritual that is a ritual of apology. Go out, bury your face on the ground, whisper into Mother Earth, I am so sorry what they have done to you. And thank you that you keep supplying life every year, every spring. And I am so sorry for what's been done, how you were destroyed, how you were removed from the culture, how you were, made evil. Even matter is like inferior to spirit. No, matter is full of intelligence. Mm-hmm. So a ritual of apology, because that, when there's been harm done, then a relationship gets distant. We want to mend the relationship. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes just saying, I'm sorry to somebody can mend the relationship.
Yeah. Totally. Saying I'm sorry to even yourself all day long can be helpful. I am sorry.
That's right. Yeah, we don't treat ourselves very well either sometimes.
Right. Exactly. So we need to tread more lightly overall. Tread more in the light.
Well, if we treat each other as gods and goddesses, you're a god, I'm a goddess, and we treat each other as that, we can treat each other with respect.
Yes. I do like to putting the R back in celibate or whatever. That sounded fun. So put some R in there.
That's right.
That's fun. It's fun. I love celebration, and there's something to be said about that. I mean, I did some rounds with Ajay Shanti, who I'm sure you know of and probably know, but went to his retreats, and he came from that lineage more so a little bit, where it's really hard. Sit lotus position 8 hours a day, and and there's so many traditions like that with from men. Like, we'll be still, real bodies, this goddess, but don't move an inch in that meditation, or we'll smack you over the head. So it's pretty.
It's not the goddess's way. The goddess culture was not judgmental. It was not punitive. It really looked at things as cause and effect. Mm-hmm. You cause harm to somebody, they're not going to like you. It's very simple. It's not that, it's not that you're an evil person. It's like you can just learn from the cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just being observant and just noticing things, right? Learning.
We extinguished the goddess, and we have an environmental crisis, cause and effect.
Oh, we don't need to pay attention to that. We're fine.
Right.
Just like an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a drinking problem. It seems like it's working for me just fine.
That's right. We're addicted to consumption.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I'd love for you to tell people a little bit more about whatever you want about the book, and I know you're not the only one in it. Like, there's other people that have this, which is cool, right? They have other
Yeah.
people sharing in there too. So tell people about the book and where they can take advantage of, getting a copy.
Okay, so here's the book, Goddess, Blessed Reunions with the Feminine Face of the Divine. And the book is the 14th one in the Common Sentience series on different topics. And there's a pattern to all the books in that series, is that the first part is all theory. And that's where I talk about the maiden, the mother, the crone, and the queen. And I tell at least 4 different goddess stories in each one. And I talk about the history and what happened in more detail than I went on today. The middle section is written by many different people who have had personal encounters with the goddess in some way that changed their life or touched them. I wrote the first and last story in that section, and then other people wrote that, but it kind of brings it out of theory and makes it real, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last section is practices. How can you bring the goddess into your everyday life and come home to the goddess? And, because when I was in the pagan community that worshiped the goddess and people discovered that, they all said, this feels like coming home. They came to our rituals, they came to our celebrations, our workshops. They said, I found my peeps. I found my community. This is coming home, because it's what we always were. And you weren't allowed. So if you're given permission to be all you can be, then you're coming home to yourself, mm-hmm. and coming home to the earth, and coming, it's the last step in the hero's quest. The hero's quest goes, there's an ailing world. I'm going to go out and take an adventure and see what I can find. And they leave and they face obstacles and all the things that Joseph Campbell outlined. And then they find the elixir of healing. And then the last step is to bring that elixir back home to the ailing world. So we've been on a hero's quest, and that's kind of the masculine arc, to be the hero. But the final step is the coming home. And as I say, that's coming back to the holy order of Mother Earth.
Oh, we could talk a long time about that as well. Wow, that's a big concept to me anyway. Holy Order of Mother Earth. Wow, that's something. What is? I gotta take time for that one. So what is that exactly? Holy Order of Mother Earth.
Well, in the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were the rites of Demeter, the grain goddess, I mean, it's a long story that I tell in the book, but at one point she had lost her daughter Persephone to the underworld, and she disguised herself as a beggar woman. And, at one point she throws off her disguise as the beggar woman because she'd been insulted. And the queen went, oh my God, I've insulted the goddess. What do I do? She says, build me a temple and reestablish my rights, because they'd already been knocked down. And so they did. They built a temple at Eleusis called the Telesterion, and they established the rites of the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were practiced for 2,000 years into Christianity even. So, these myths tell us what to do, but that's the Holy Order of Mother Earth, to reestablish the rights of the sacred, that this world is sacred. It's a simple thing like saying grace before you eat your food, that it's sacred. You're taking in sustenance, you're taking in a gift, to, really infuse our world with the sacred once again. If there's something that I've been really, upset about recently, it seems like the world is getting so debased. It's like the moral fiber is just sinking down, and people are mean to each other, and they make death threats over the slightest thing. And, there's just, the stuff everybody's looking at on TikTok. I mean, there's just no meaning. There's no substance to it. It's all junk food. And, so we need to get back to the sacred again. And that's part of this Holy Mother Earth. And I say the magic of the goddess is home cooking. And, we always liked our own mom's home cooking.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Just allow that in. I mean, so part of that is to get out of, consuming so much all the time. We're in the bathroom, or we're doing anything. Like we're going on a walk. We're always plugged into a phone. It's like, I know, like I always goes against the grain because this is a podcast. People might be taking it through the phone, but even as I take things in throughout the day, I do to some degree. I have times, now I got carried away too for a while. I'm like, okay, you don't need to keep consuming. There's more to be gained in the silence. You already know this, Dad. What are you doing? So just allowing myself to sink into that, and realizing the power in that connection, even just the nurturance of it. I mean, just that alone is huge. So absolutely. And then you've got another, tell us about She Rises for a moment too, if you like.
Yeah, She Rises is a set of cards. They're this size, and actually, this box isn't open, but they open like a greeting card. And the picture's on the front, and there are 38 archetypes of feminine leadership, with the idea that women lead differently than men. They need different archetypes to guide them. And, men can lead in the way they do, that's fine, but women have different ways that aren't recognized. And so the archetype speaks directly in the I voice. That's on the back of the picture. Then in the inside of the card is the, historical information about that archetype, or maybe if it's a new rising archetype, then like the activist, I didn't have activists in ancient times, but we do now. 60% of all activists are women. So it tells about her standing in the world. And then on the back, it has you. So when you work with this archetype, this is the advice for you. It's asking you to open your heart, or get grounded, or take a course of study, or, go on a vision quest, whatever that archetype might be asking. And so I work with women on awakening these archetypes in themselves and it's like awakening superpowers. And at first I did this just for women. I had these little circles, and people would read this I and have something come through them, and they'd shake and they'd cry and they go, wow, I'm going to bring my husband to this. So I thought, well, okay, I'm open, and I thought, I'm not sure what's in that for the men, but the men would come and they would pick a card and they would read it, and they would burst into tears and they would shake and they would have these realizations, because that feminine in them had been knocked out, or it was in their wife or their sister or their daughter that they hadn't recognized. So there's something in this for all of us. The goddess religion never excluded men. Men were never in a diminished position. They were always as equal. The pagan community today has equal numbers of men and women, and the men are very happy cavorting with goddesses and being treated like a god. It's and celebrating. And it's very sex positive culture, and the men in that are really happy being with goddesses. Women who know who they are, who earn their own money, who have their own power, and the men are not threatened by it. Right. They're enhanced by it.
Right. Oh yeah. Wow. That feels really, really awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it just like, it gives me the sense of safety in a way, because I feel like that's one of the things like I felt, and that's one of the impetuses for my other podcast, the Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, is, there is a sense when guys are honest, there's a sense of not being safe to be a guy, especially a white guy. Like, you're the problem. Let's hang him up from the highest tree. Almost five. It's like, I'm not saying people are always saying that, but like that's how it feels sometimes. And it's like, listen, I've known since I was 10 years old, I had privilege. I understood it. I was just one of those people that knows,
at least
right?
It's safer for you at a traffic stop.
Right, totally. But I'm just saying, like, I'm aware of it. Okay, I mean, So my point is, yeah, I'm just saying, like, I love that you're saying, like, the truth is, what I really loved what you said, what I was trying to say is that you're like, no, it's not this dichotomy. Now it's about the women, throw the men under the bus, because a lot of times it comes across that way through some of the voices out there. And I love the way that you're presenting it is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for those voices out there, because they don't really represent the movement as a whole. And there's always those loud fringe voices in any movement, but the movement as a whole is one that embraces men, but as equals, and we want to be treated as equals.
Yeah. Yep. So totally. Okay. So totally go ahead and do what you guys want to do and be the goddess that you are. And if you want to connect more with all this awesome wisdom and knowledge about goddess, the mythology, all this information that, as well, all this information, so many things that Anodea has been talking about, during the show, then you check out this book, take advantage of it. I find these books to be powerful. I did receive the one when we had Neil Donald Walsh on. He was in a similar type of compilation. I found it to be really powerful to have other people's voices mixed in with a powerful, leader, so someone who's bringing wisdom, keeper, leader, or whatever. It was really powerful the way it comes together. So I highly recommend that sort of book. And then the cards are a no-brainer for any woman that wants to claim more of your I want to say your power, but like more of your power and your connection with the feminine, and your goddess. Like, totally get the cards. So where's the best place? Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So goddess can be ordered on Amazon. Okay. And it's just type in the word goddess in my name and you'll find it. The She Rises cards are not on Amazon because they take too big a cut and I'd have to make them too expensive. But they're the SheRisesMovement.com, because I'm wanting to make this a movement. SheRisesMovement.com, you can pick up the cards there. And people just love them.
That's fantastic. That's really great. Great. Awesome. So, and then the last thing is our energy scan segment. So I just do a little tuning in really overall, and get any downloads that might be there. Probably just 2 this show. Usually it's 2 or 3-ish, but yeah, it's maybe a couple of downloads, and then share those with you. And again, guys, listen in. I always find like people are gaining through this segment because whatever I'm sharing with Anodea is going to be something that you need to hear too, probably. And then she's going to have something to say about it, which also will be very helpful to you as well. Are you ready to receive?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Just one moment to connect in. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just really feel you. It's a unique kind of vibe I got. Like the image they showed was just that you're gathering all this energy from all these different lineages and lifetimes and everything, and you're just, coming into this present moment to share this wisdom with people. And it's the way it was presented, it was really beautiful that your soul has, it's almost like you've been doing a lot of multi-dimensional travel. Like, I went over there, forget this linear path of past lives and stuff. I was like gathering all this stuff while you guys were sleeping. I was doing all this, something like that. That's how it feels. And so it's really beautiful. I'm also, getting different nature symbols coming in. I see, I just trust what comes through, but I see sort of an eagle energy coming in. Then I see like white mountains and stuff coming in. And it just, there's just a sense of claiming the elegance and the beauty of life, and that there is something, with those eyes of the eagle, like, life's not judging you, but it is watching you. It's watching what you're doing. And it's like, and there are consequences to how you're, showing up in your life. They're just natural, and they're all there to lead you back home. And I feel like you're helping people to remember, like, honor this, or you're just going to suffer. Sorry. I mean, just the way it works, come back home or you're going to suffer more. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting out of this whole download. So there's at least 2 or 3 downloads and just that one download. So I'm just going to leave it there so it doesn't go too long today. But any reflections on what came through?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's these images of nature that we come home to, that we come back to. And that it is really, and I have studied many things in my life. I've studied mythology and history, and I've studied the chakras and Eastern mythology and yoga, and I have a PhD in psychology. And, so I've studied many different paths, and they're all converging right now as we have this planetary awakening. There's no one true, right, and only way. But the more we study, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the more our eyes open to what is possible. The world we know in our hearts is possible. And that's what we're here to create.
Nice. Awesome. Everybody, if you want to check me out, go to yoursacredpurpose.com. Honoring the goddess in you, you can do that as well through my Meditate and Make Money meditation. Get connected. I open up your energy to just let the guidance come in, open up your energy, your chakras. And then, people say I've got coding in there and stuff. Well, I'm not aware of it completely. I just let come through what comes through. So it awakens you, it gets you connected, lets energy come in that allows you to experience the abundance you are, and helps you in your business. Definitely have colleagues that are benefiting from that, listening each day. So check that out. If you are inspired by what you listen into, then feel free to send me an email afterwards and let me know. If you'd like to receive some energy scanning from me directly, just put energy scan in the email. For each show is different. Put energy scan in the email subject line. Tell me what show you listen to, and we'll do a goddess energy scan for you, okay? And then I'll refer you to her book, or no, we'll do a goddess energy scan for your business and see how you can embody more of that goddess energy so that you can expand your light leadership and expand your business and what's possible through it. And of course, I only aligned energy, folks. I will respond, and I will follow up with you to provide you this service for free, actually, for a very limited number of you, if guidance points me in your direction, okay? So it's all at yoursacredpurpose.com. And those that you can follow those instructions, you're the right ones. All right. So, okay. Because there are some people who are really good at following instructions. They get it all. They say sometimes that's the way to weed people out that are a good fit or not a good fit, right? Did you follow the instructions? So let's see. Anyway, I really love to, I just want to, this last thoughts as we're wrapping up here. I really love, like I didn't exclaim it earlier enough. I really love that you're about the play, the joy, and all that as well, because this stuff can get so serious, we've got to right all the wrongs. We got to, all that. And then it turns into anger, and it's something else, right? I love that you do have lightness in it, that you bring a balanced perspective within being very strong in what you're sharing about. And so I'm really grateful you've come on today to share all that you have. It's just such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm just wishing you the best success with your mission and your work in the world.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was really a pleasure to talk with you today.
And as I always say, keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone. Goodbye.
For listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.